What was that?
Build the build into the build. It's not like I'm carrying this thing up Everest.
I have a hole in my shirt.
I don't know.
Hi spooky friends, welcome back to Kelly Does Stuff. Today I'm going to show you the latest build that I made for a section of my Halloween Village display. Every year I try to work on a different section, a different theme of my display, and this build I'm calling a Gothic mountain. Now when I think Gothic, I'm thinking castles, dragons, gargoyles, and I have been wanting to do this for a couple of years. I have this idea for like a town center. We're gonna have some water, we're gonna have mountains, and that requires some planning. That requires like getting the buildings down and measuring stuff, and then like measuring the size of the display and where's it gonna fit. And not surprisingly, I had no interest in doing the planning of that at all. That just felt so boring and felt like so much work, and I was just really in the mood to create. I started this a couple months ago. I've been taking some breaks, and it had been a long time since I had done like a build. I'd been doing some smaller accessory things, trees and bridges, but I was like really ready to do like a big display with no planning and not a big idea, like a general idea.
Would I do that? We could build it up further, like,
oh no, nothing works. But not like a big idea of what I was going to do. The other thing is, I really wanted to try some new materials, try some different things with materials that I had used in the past. For the past couple of years, I've kind of had a look and a theme to some of the things that I have made. I was just ready to do some new stuff. I wanted to experiment a little bit. So, armed with a couple of styrofoam coolers and the desire to just like make stuff, I just jumped in with this build. And then together, we're gonna get the buildings out finally, because I couldn't avoid that any longer. We had to see what was going to fit on the platforms. We'll figure out what goes there. It becomes a musical at some point. I don't know, you guys, it was truly a journey. So let's go ahead and get started on the Gothic journey.
We've got our coolers for instant height. My lower levels and my base is scrap EPS foam from packaging. My general idea is to have some buildings on my highest level. On the second level here, hopefully some buildings that they fit, if not accessories. And then on the lowest level, accessories and figurines. And then in between the mountains, I'm going for a river. First things first, gotta turn those coolers into a mountain. I'm using a hot wire tool and EPS foam to carve long, slate-like pieces of rock. This is so different than the mountains I have done in the past. Typically, I'm doing smaller, rounded, more boulder type rocks, and I really kind of had to fight against that muscle memory to make these strips of foam smaller and round off the edges, but I really wanted to go for something different with this build. I'm angling these rocks towards the center of the display. Each mountain is going to have the rocks at a little bit of a diagonal, kind of pointing towards the river. On the inside faces of the mountains, they'll be a little bit more straight down, just a tiny bit of a diagonal, and I just kind of thought that was a more interesting look than having them just go completely straight down. As I work on the build, I'm only going to hot glue that one cooler in place. As you can see, when they are both there, I have a very narrow space to work, and I need to plaster and paint and work on river detail. So I'm gonna leave that second cooler free to move. To carve my river, I'm using the freehand router tool, and this is fantastic for rivers because you can bend and adjust the shape of the wire to the shape that you want your body of water. You know, just make sure that that tool is off when you are touching the wire. Hey Kelly, how are you gonna make that water look realistic? Oh, great question. Thank you for asking. I will be using Realistic Water by Woodland Scenics again. And some of you have probably been with me before when I have tried this product with varying success. I really think I was just asking too much of the product. It is not meant for a deep pour. You're going to convey the depth of your body of water by the way that you paint it. I was trying so hard to do a very even carve, so that way I wouldn't have deeper areas in my river where that realistic water was going to pool when it was time to pour. and you can see how that went. Let's plaster. I have to plaster my river to protect it from the realistic water which will eat through the foam. I'm also going to cover all of the rocks on my mountain because I just love the look of plaster. Also, when that plaster dries, it is going to give me great texture for my rocks, which is so important because I am using EPS foam and that does not take texture the way that XPS foam does. I could take a rock or some aluminum foil to XPS foam and get some great detail that's gonna pop when I paint it. EPS foam is like, no thank you. Don't bring a rock to me. I'm disinterested in that. If you want some more information on how to plaster your projects, I have a video on just that. I took about a week off from the build, and when I got back to it, I finished gluing the rock detail to the bottom half of the second cooler, and then immediately remembered that that was completely unnecessary because the bottom half was going to be covered by my lower platform. I could have pulled all that off, but I didn't even feel like messing with it. I just decided to plaster the top half of the rock. Okay, well, except for right here, but that is the corner and you're gonna see that part, so it needed some plaster. Continuing with the theme of trying new things for this build, I'm going to create some rocks using a product called Sculptamold. The video right before this one, I go into greater detail on how to use this product, but the short of it is so easy and it creates incredible realistic detail for your project. One thing I forgot to mention in that video is it does add some pretty significant weight to your build. I'm using caulk to secure these rocks in place, and my idea for these rocks was to start at the base of those larger, cooler mountains and tie that into the lower platforms and the overall base of the display. Mixing up more Sculptamold so I can fill in the gaps between the rocks, kind of tie everything together and make it look as organic as possible. I'm still not gluing the second cooler in place, but I want to get that lower platform in there so I can begin adding the rock detail. We got a thin layer of Sculptamold here on the landing of the stair to give it a bit of texture, but not so bumpy that our spooky friends won't be able to stand up. Rock detail is done and dry. That can only mean one thing. I really enjoy painting, so I'm going to use a brush to apply my base coat. But if that sounds really boring to you, then that's another reason to use plaster. Plaster will protect your styrofoam, meaning you can now use spray paint. Spray paint will eat through foam, which can be a really cool effect if you are intentional and that is what you want to do. Otherwise, it will destroy your project. When that base coat is dry, I'm going in with a heavy dry brushing of a lighter gray. And I have a question for you guys. Who remembers the show Tales from the Crypt? I liked watching that show growing up, and for some reason, while I was painting this at night, I remembered that show and pulled up episodes and watched it or kind of listened to it while I was painting. It was so fun. And then now, anytime I look at this build, I think of those episodes and I think of that show. The ones I watched were pretty creepy. Like, I watched that as a kid. So my vision for these mountains is gray. but I thought it would be kind of boring if it was just all shades of gray. And in fact, in so many of my builds, that's kind of what it is. I do gray brick, I'll do gray cobblestone. So I wanted to add a little bit of brown, orangey, yellowish to it, sort of like when the minerals kind of like leach through the rocks. And I'm doing this with sort of a wash technique. So I'm really diluting the colors that I use and being selective about where I apply it. One of the nice things about using the wash is that the paint will find all of those cracks and crevices and run down those. And so it kind of paints itself. It gives it that organic, natural look without me having to think about it too much, which is great because I'm a major overthinker. I also tend to overdo it when I like something. So this allowed me to have a little bit restraint by just kind of letting the paint do what it does. When that was dry, it was time to cover the entire mountain, all of the rocks, in a dark wash. This is black acrylic paint and water. And the wash helps bring out the detail. It adds so much depth to the mountains and the rocks or whatever your painting project is, which maybe sounds kind of funny because you're like, it's a wash? Does it like wash it out? It dilutes the colors. It covers up all the work that you did. But actually, it's the opposite. It just kind of brings everything to life. When the wash is dry, it was time to go in with a dry brush of that same raw sienna color. And this is just hitting the highlights and the edges to help bring out all of that good detail in the rock. And then finally, our last bit of dry brushing is a very light gray. And I'm trying so hard to exercise self-control here because I really want to bring out as much detail as possible, but I don't want to lighten up the whole thing. So being selective. The building that I display in the platform typically determines the ground cover for that platform. And since I don't yet have any idea what I am displaying here, I'm just going to paint everything with this reddish brown color, and then we'll make some adjustments later on. Along the riverbank, I add in some lighter brown and I mix in some grays, some of that reddish brown, trying to blend everything in a way that looks really natural. I don't want any sharp changes in color. I do know that I want my lowest level of my platform to be grass, so I broke out my static grass applicator, and this is so cool because it allows your grass to stand up like grass in real life. So easy to use. You just apply some glue, this little claw clippy thing, you turn it over and you start shaking it. And then you look at it and you're like, why aren't you standing up? And you realize your battery is dead. But once you fix that, you are in business for some really realistic looking grass. You can get grass in multiple colors. This is kind of like a puke green and different sizes. This grass is 3 millimeters. Let's add a little bit of gravelly, pebbly detail and a bit of sand. The darker one is a little bit coarser, and then I'm sparingly adding the sand. You can barely even see it here. I don't want it to turn too beachy looking. Both of these I got at Michael's. Painting the river was probably the hardest decision of the whole project because I didn't know if I wanted more of a true blue color, if I wanted it to be like a bit of a greenish river, and finally I was like, Kel, just start painting because I don't think you're ever gonna know. And I ultimately did go with just blues, not much green in there. Without question, the greatest skill that I have as a creator is making a complete and total mess. So thank goodness for Press and Seal. This was fantastic for protecting the area around the river so I didn't get blue on everything else. This river process is going to require a lot of blending, and since we're painting plaster, that means our river is going to look really bad before it kind of starts to look good. The first application of paint kind of re-wets the plaster, and it will come up a bit if you keep going over that same area to get a really thorough cover. So the best way to do this is to just go one pass through with the paintbrush, cover as much as you can, let that dry, and then once that first coat is kind of on there, then you can begin blending the colors together. You could add a bit of water into your colors. Things will go a little bit more smoothly, but let your first application of paint just look really bad and rough. Let's add some more Sculptamold to this side of the river because we gotta have some rock detail. And should I have done this before I painted the river? Yeah, but you know, far be it from me to do things that make sense. And since we just can't get enough rocks, let's glue some rocks to our river. Here we go, realistic water again. I moved my project into the garage. If you remember the first time I did this, I poured it outside and mosquitoes landed in the water and died. And while that does create a very realistic, spooky effect, I just maybe felt for this time we could have water without mosquitoes. I'm going to repeat this process several times. The instructions say to only pour 1/8 of an inch at a time. For this first pass, I am trying to smooth it to the edges of the river, but for the most part, it is going to pool in those deeper areas, and that's fine. We're just gonna let the product do what it wants to do. I let this cure for several days before going in with another 1/8 of an inch pour. That's the result. After the first pour, I go in with pour 2, wait a couple days, do pour 3, and I stopped at 3. After pour 2, I did drop a couple more pebbles into the realistic water while it was still wet. No glue, just let the water set them in place.
Gotta do another drum roll because the exciting moment is here. I finally get to look at my Gothic buildings and see what is going to fit. I pulled out as much as I could. Most of these are stored in my attic. Those were easy to get to. Some of my Gothic pieces are on shelves in my garage behind other things, and I couldn't get to them. Garage is its own special nightmare right now. All right, so I'm gonna show you what I've got, and then we'll pull them out and see what fits. Fingers crossed. I know some of this is gonna fit, but it will be really exciting to kind of see like what's gonna work where. I hope it's exciting. Hopefully I'm not like, oh no, nothing works. All right, so this first piece right here is this Castle Limax. Guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this was last year's release. I think I took you along with me to Michael's to get this piece. It's an exclusive. I definitely think Castle, when I think Gothic, dragons, gargoyles, and skulls. Come on, that's Gothic. Okay, we also have another castle. This is a Department 56 piece. Got this last year, never displayed it. I don't know if I even took it out of the box, okay? And another castle. This is Department 56. I got this on eBay a few years ago. This may have been my first Gothic piece where I was like, I think we need like a whole section now for this. You know how that goes. All right, this is Dragon's Lair. This is kind of sort of like a town piece, I think, but it is a small enough base that we might put it, for now, at least on one of those lower platforms in the build. This is a Limax Mausoleum piece. This was introduced many, many years ago. Used to be my dad's. He gifted it to me, and if you guys have been here before, you know my dad is the inspiration for the madness, the collecting and villaging madness. I have a church by Department 56, and I also have this dragon Game of Thrones piece. Department 56 has a Game of Thrones line. I'm not actually like a huge Game of Thrones fan. I probably have seen most of the series, did not read the books, but I think it is a beautiful inspiration for building display designs, for creating mountains. Like if you're kind of wanting to create some creepy mountains, watch scenes from the show or just kind of look at stills, I have the Iron Throne, and maybe just this. I can't remember if I have one of their buildings. I probably will at some point as the Gothic section grows, get the other Game of Thrones buildings, let's be honest. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start taking out some of the buildings that I think will work. We'll test it, we'll see what does work. I also grabbed out of storage 2 bins that I'm hoping I labeled correctly that say Gothic on them. So we'll also be able to pull out a few accessories. And for this point in time, just so we can have that satisfaction of like a finished display, see what this could look like. And then when it comes time to display it, we'll change it all. Okay, let's start taking stuff out of boxes. I think this piece, well, I kind of think it's too wide, but I definitely don't feel like this would be at the top of a mountain. I think it's gonna be lower.
Okay, what do we think? Here? Oh, we'll see. Maybe? Yes? I don't know. This is definitely a town piece, but oh, it could, I don't know. What do we think? Put you there for a second. The church. No, that's too tight. Okay, you don't fit. You don't fit. What about here? Ooh, you kind of fit. Ooh, I maybe like it. I think that's gonna, even for now, that Angus! Oh, his name Angus. You could go here, but no. You're gonna have to go in the town. That's just all there is. All right, let's try our little dragging. I do kind of like you. Okay, and then this piece, because we've got water here, I'm gonna save this because I definitely want to incorporate the platform continuing the water element. And then we could also build some castle structure into the platform. Build the build into the build. I'll probably go ahead and put this church here. I do like to have, well, would I do that?
Churches, I like to have like a front area where you would have like a gate, and you could add some other stuff, and there's not much of a walkway here.
The biggest thing I do want to think about is what ground cover I would put for these. So there's a tie. So I can do something here that could just kind of be universal. In the permanent display, when I take this church away, the next piece will just integrate well. All right, so I'm going to come in close. Let's kind of take a look at some of the additional work I'm going to now do on these platforms to tie into the piece. And we're going to figure it out together because I don't know what we're going to do. But let's take a look. Look. All right, so for this piece right away, what I'm thinking is I want to have this go up even a little bit more. So put another platform on and have this stair work right here. I think that I want to continue. I think, it's going to be really fun. What do I actually end up doing? I don't know. Hopefully I'm not going to poke myself in the eye. Oh, the little flames move. How fun is that? We've got rock down here. So I think I'm going to add rock detail up on the sides, right? So that way, instead of this looking like it's setting on something, it's a part of it. We'll have some groundish cover here so we can have our spooky friends right here. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Let's go to this one. This one, we also definitely have rock detail. I'm wondering, do I want to add more rock to this or just sort of have a ground cover that integrates? We do have the steps here, but maybe it's just a path. We might have to get into this and play around because I'm sort of, we could build it up further, like, that could be interesting. Oh, and then we have this going up. I kind of like good. Oh my gosh, we have so much more to do. Okay, I really like the dragon here. And you want to know what's really funny is the one place I planned for an outlet escape, like a plug escape, is the one thing that's not lit up. So my question in terms of ground cover is, do I think my dragon is forever going to live here? Okay, a lot of work still to do. Which castle do I start with?
I mean, obviously I'm gonna start with the skull castle because I clearly have an idea of exactly what I want to do. I'm going with Sculptamold again for my rock detail because I am super infatuated, but I gotta build up some height. So I'm just hot gluing scrap pieces of EPS foam and then we're gonna cover it with the Sculptamold.
Here we go. Let's see. I think that works. Line it up. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yay! Clap it up. Yes, 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 yes. I was really hoping that after doing that platform, I would have clarity on this one, but I'm still not sure what I want to do. Should I raise this up like I did that? That actually does make it more interesting instead of this just being a flat surface. Should I use Sculptamold? Again, more Sculptamold. I mean, this platform's already 5,000 pounds, so why not make it heavier? It's not like I'm carrying this thing up Everest. It can be heavy. This, I think I'll just never glue it in place. That could potentially help with storage or not. Probably not. I mean, like, where's this gonna go? But if I do more Sculptamold on here, it's not like totally adding weight, although it could be good because then you're balancing it. I don't know. Like, I actually don't really care about the weight all that much. No, I don't know. I don't even know. Yeah, I could squiggle it. Squiggle it. Everything is a song. Should I carve out part of a stair? Yeah, I should.
Well, I wasn't able to locate many of my Gothic accessories, but that's okay. We are gonna make this work for today. And just like that, our Gothic mountain is done. Let's take a look. thank you all so very much for joining me on this Gothic journey. We are in June, and I know that so many of us are heavy deep into our creating right now, and I hope that you have the most spooktacular time. I appreciate you spending time with me today. If you could give this video a like, I would love it so very much. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. And the biggest thank you in the whole world to all of you who have subscribed. It means more than I could ever say. I look forward to seeing you guys again very soon, and happy creating!